In this video, we'll be taking a closer look at two more powerful element methods, last and LastOrDefault. Just like their counterparts first and firstOrDefault, these methods can be extremely handy for manipulating and working with sequences of data. So, let's dive right in. As you've probably already guessed, using last and LastOrDefault is just as straightforward as using first and firstOrDefault. The syntax remains nearly identical, making it easier for you to switch between these methods without breaking a sweat. In this video I will only show you the different overloads of both methods, what does each one mean and how to use. You can use the same examples from the previous video to practice these methods. The only difference between last and first is the element we want to retrieve, either the first or the last element of a sequence. So, let's start with last method. It has two overloads. The first one is used with empty braces. It returns the last element of a sequence. If the sequence contains elements, we get the last element, else an invalid operation exception will be thrown. The second overload is used with a lambda expression. It returns the last element of a sequence that satisfies a specified condition. If the result sequence of the expression contains elements, we get the last element, else an exception will be thrown. These are both overloads of last method. Let's check the following simple query to understand them better. Suppose I have the following string array, that contains different names. I have this query to get only the names, which start with letter M. The result of this query is the following sequence. Using last method after the query I will get the last name from the sequence. Let's use the second overload of last method with the following condition. Here I am filtering the sequence to get only the names, that end with letter X. The result of the expression is the following sequence, which contains only this name. So, the result of the query will be this name, which is last element in the sequence. Suppose I have another condition to get only the names, that end with letter F. The result of the expression is an empty sequence. In this case, an invalid operation exception will be thrown, because the sequence is empty. So, using both overloads of last method I will get the last element, if the sequence contains elements, else an exception will be thrown. That's all about the last method. Let's move on to the next method, LastOrDefault. This method has four overloads. The first overload is used with empty braces. It returns the last element of a sequence, or a default value if the sequence contains no elements. So, here we either get the last element of the sequence, or the type's default value if the sequence is empty. The second overload is used with a default value inside the braces. It returns the last element of a sequence, or a specified default value if the sequence contains no elements. So, here we either get the last element of the sequence, or the default value we added inside the braces, in case the sequence is empty. The third overload is used with a lambda expression. It returns the last element of a sequence that satisfies a condition, or a default value if no such element is found. Here we also get the last element, or the type's default value if the sequence is empty. The last overload is used with lambda expression and default value. It returns the last element of a sequence that satisfies a condition, or a specified default value if no such element is found. Here we also get the last element, or the default value we entered inside the braces if the sequence is empty. These are the four overloads of LastOrDefault method. Let's check the following example to understand them better. I have the same array and the same query again. The result of the query is the following sequence. Using LastOrDefault with empty braces or with default value, I will get the following name as result, which is the last element inside the sequence. Suppose I have another condition in the query. The result of the query now is an empty sequence. In this case, the query on the left side returns an empty string, which is the string default value. On the other hand, the query on the right side returns the following string, which is the default value I added inside the braces. So, both overloads return the last element in case the sequence contains elements, else the default value will be returned. The same will be for the other two overloads with a lambda expression. As mentioned, last and LastOrDefault methods can be used exact the same like first and firstOrDefault methods. So, no need to explain these methods anymore. Before ending this video, let's summarize both methods again. I added the 6 overloads on the left side. Here I added both scenarios, either the sequence contains elements, or the sequence is empty. Let's check the result of each overload in both scenarios. All overloads return the last element of the sequence in case the sequence contains elements. So, there is no difference between the overloads here. The difference is when the sequence is empty. Both overloads of last method throw an invalid operation exception. The first and third overloads of last or default return the type's default value. And the second and fourth overloads of last or default return the entered default value. That's all about both methods for now.